Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We have some special guests joining us this morning.
That's right. World-renowned motivational speaker,
Yes,
Mr. Les Brown.
Yes, and his son, John Leslie Brown. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a plum-pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege to be here, sir.
Wow.
Plum-pleasing pleasure. How do you please the plum? How do you please the plum, Mr. Brown? Do tell.
It takes a little work up in here.
Now tell the people who is Les Brown for folks who may not know.
Well, I was born in an abandoned building on a floor with a twin brother in Liberty City. We were 6 weeks of age. We became foster kids, and then we were adopted. And when I was in fifth grade, I was labeled educable mental retarded and put back from the fifth grade to the fourth grade. And
Hold on. You can't. I don't think you can say that word no more. Can you?
Because
He can. That's what he was labeled.
I know, but
Yeah,
now
yeah.
they say it's politically incorrect
But
to
that's what he
say.
was labeled as a
Yeah,
kid. So you can say
yeah.
it.
That's it. During that time, you could.
Yeah,
right.
I know. I just don't want
And you
to
can't
say.
just say it in conversation
And
like, oh, yes.
87% of the kids that are relegated to special education are African American males.
That's
you
right.
know, and I fit that profile and failed again when I was in the 8th grade. But I had a high school teacher that was very much like you guys who did a major interruption. He asked me to do something, to work out a problem, and I told him I couldn't do it. And he said, why not? I said, I'm not one of his students. He said, do it anyhow. And I said, I can't, sir. And then the other students started laughing, saying, he's Leslie. He's got a twin brother, Wesley. Wesley's smart. He's DT. And he asked, what's DT? He's the dumb twin. And
Damn it, man.
Yes, and I said, I am, sir. And he came from behind his desk. He said, don't you ever say that again.
That's right.
Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality.
That's right.
Yeah, and so that was a major disruption. We all have disruptions in our lives, and he disrupted the story that I believe about myself. And the work that I do is to help people to begin to create a different story for themselves. When you live in a culture that destroys your sense of self and demonizes you and deny you, it causes you to really want to begin to work to overcome that mental conditioning and begin to carve out the life that you're supposed to live. And so that's what I've planted my feet on and start working on. My son, John Leslie, he's the president of the company, and we've been doing this for many years. I've been doing it for 51 years. I'm 77. So it's been an exciting venture doing this kind of work all over the world.
Can we dig a little deeper into the belief system that we all have of ourselves? Because Bishop T.D. Jakes gave a great sermon on this yesterday called "Hurdles to Wholeness," and he spoke about how other people's opinion, your growth is not predicated on other people's opinion, and he said it's all about the belief system you have of yourself.
The belief systems are created between the ages of 0 and 5. We learn through conversations, through observation, through experiences, and through things that we observe. And between 0 and 5, there's a voice that formulates in our heart according to the most exhaustive study by Martin Seligman in a book called Learned Optimism that says yes, or that voice says no. And it governs your choice. It becomes a way in which you begin to view the world. And so what we have to do to get through it, it's not just a conversation. We just did a training at the Rock Church in Queens. We created an experience so that people can begin to get outside of their history and live out of their imagination, because most people are not even aware of what's governing their choices and behavior. Case in point, the anthropologist Margaret Mead was in London, and a waiter said, there's several Americans here tonight. And so she said, is that right? And said, yeah. Said, let me know when you serve them dessert, then I'll tell you how many are here. So he came back over the table and said, I've done it. So she got up and she walked around. She said, there are 35. He looked at the roster. He said, how do you know? She said, in the UK, when you eat a slice of pie, you eat it from the crust toward the tip. In America, when you eat it from the tip toward the crust. How do you eat your pie?
From the tip to the crust.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
yeah,
way I
yeah.
eat my pizza.
Yeah, so what else do we pick up? We pick up things,
Yeah.
in our culture that governs our behavior, the things that we say. We live within the context of the stories we believe about ourselves. And so this gentleman, because being adopted, being labeled educable mentally retarded, I followed him. I could never become one of his students because during that time you could not be mainstream and go to class with other kids. So, but I followed him because he had such great oratorical skills. He was a speech and drama instructor. And he took a liking to me, and he taught me 3 things that's very important. He said, in order to make it in life, number 1, you have to develop your mind, that you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. Number 2, you have to practice the principle of OQP, only quality people. You earn within $2,000 to $3,000 of your closest friends. People rub off on you. Academy Award winner Sidney Poitier said, when you go for a walk with someone, something happens. Either you adjust to their pace or they adjust to your pace. Whose pace have you adjusted to? But the other thing that he said that's most important, that's really important today, he said, develop your communication skills, because once you open your mouth, you begin to tell the world who you are. So when I was your age, I was a disc jockey. That's what I wanted to be. That was a major part of my life. And so he taught me how to begin to use my voice to penetrate, to get in, and to be able to make an impact in there. I used to be on radio here at BLS, in LA, in Miami, Florida, in Chicago, and then I became a community activist, state legislator, because of my communication skills, as well as being able to do specials for public television. But now I have a program called Hungry to Speak, teaching others. You learn, you earn, you pass it on, teaching others how to take their ideas, their talents, and their skills and experiences, and how to monetize them, because we've gone from, as you're aware, from brick and mortar to click and order.
That's a brilliant backstory. So you were literally, because you said they used to separate you, so you was one of those kids that would be in the trailers off to themselves, had to ride the short bus, eat lunch before everybody else.
The Dodo Wars.
The Dodo Wars?
Yeah, that's called the Dodo Ward. Those were the dumb kids, and so they separated us. We were isolated.
Yeah. Did you have to stay in school till you were 21?
No.
Okay.
I got out I failed twice, but I went to summer school every year.
Okay.
For 5 years, I went to summer school, and I was able to get a lot of help from smart people like you. I would copy off your papers.
Oh, no, I had to go in. I was in some of them learning disability classes for a semester because, it was based on standardized tests. So I had failed this standardized test one time, and they had me in those classes, too, for 1 second.
Life is full of experiences, disruptions, but what we have to do in the process of the disruptions, we have to transform to accommodate them. And so what I'm doing now is training speakers how to transform people, teach them the tools that they need to make it in and out of the pandemic. Who is it you have to be? What is it you have to do? What's the plan of action we have to execute so we can turn the disadvantage to our advantage and to win? Because we've always had to overcome the odds.
That's right.
Let me ask you a question. You talk about, you raising and kids making fun of you and how you overcame it now, right? Do you feel like the world is a lot softer now? Because I don't think kids could stand what you went through as a child.
No, I don't think the world is a lot softer now. I just think that the tools to destroy a person's sense of self are more powerful, and we've never seen them before.
Right.
You
get bullied at home because people are online bullying you. It's not just in person.
It's everywhere. They have algorithms that can determine, based upon when you go into a room, your eye movements.
That's right.
What your sexual orientation. They got things that can manipulate our thinking, algorithms. So we've never been in this place before where we have instruments that know more about us than we know about ourselves. That's why what we have to do is pay more attention to discovering ourselves early on rather than just going through the indoctrination and allowing our kids to be indoctrinated in the school system. We have to interrupt that to help them to discover the truth of who they are so they can become an asset to society rather than a liability. My goal is to eliminate the virus before the pandemic, HIV, hood-infected virus, AIDS, addiction to incarceration, and death syndrome. So we have an opportunity and the ability to impact people's lives now in a different kind of way and not just let the tools that are out there manipulate our minds and the children's mind. The people who created these instruments, they say they've been duped by it. They can't always figure it out. And it's evolving and becoming more sophisticated.
You said it's machines that can detect your sexual orientation?
Yes, the algorithms. You can go, if you go into a room and there are people in the room, they watch your eye movements, they can determine whether or not you're homosexual or bisexual just with your eye movement, these algorithms. Yes.
I'm going to have to call Cap on this one, Les Bryant. I've never heard such a thing.
I know it. All you need to do is look at the social dilemma.
I saw that movie. I ain't seen nothing about that. I ain't see that part.
Oh, man. We have to study.
What's the name of the machine?
It's the algorithms better than
Why you
wanted to be?
I don't believe this. That's just crazy to say.
No, it is. It's crazy to believe that we can be targeted through behavioral marketing, and we are, and they can influence and tilt the scales on the choices that we make, and we think they're our choices, and those are choices that we have bought into.
No, I agree with that, but I'm just saying a machine that when you walk in the room, it scans your eyes and can tell if your sexual orientation.
Let me look at me, Charlamagne. Let me see.
That wasn't the right look, Charlamagne. I think the point that my dad is making, and he's 77, but he knows how to work his iPhone. Okay. He still has an 8-track, but he knows how to work his iPhone.
Gotcha.
And is that what we've seen in our generation is this rise of mechanized intelligence.
I agree.
Right?
Artificial intelligence.
Mechanized intelligence. And a lot of times, I wouldn't say, DJ Envy, that the world is softer, but you know what's lacking? Organic intelligence.
I agree with that.
If you were growing up, when I grew up, you used to know how to get to different places without Google or Waze.
Use a map. You gotta use your critical
Use your map,
skills.
a Thomas guide. Now
I still can't do that now. I have to put Waze in for everything. Even when I go home, I put Waze on. I know how to get home, but I use it for everything else.
For everything.
Even
hard to-
memory.
It's hard to even park without the camera on.
Exactly, because now we're stopped using and relying on our organic intelligence, and that's not always cultivated in educational environments. And the wonderful thing I love about my dad, everyone knows Les Brown is the most powerful speaker in the world, #1 search motivational speaker online of all times, but he's an even better father. He's a great father, and he's not just a role model, but he's an enrollment model. See, a role model is someone that you can watch from afar and try to learn what they're applying. But an enrollment model will hold you accountable and pull things out of you that you did not even know was there.
You have 10 kids.
The Lord said, be fruitful and multiply. I took him seriously.
I see.
You know I hate to go there. Yeah. See, when I was doing what you guys do, I was Les Brown, the man about town. LB Triple P, there were none before me and there will be none after me. Therefore, that makes me the one and only, young and single and love to mingle, certified, bona fide, duly qualified to bring you satisfaction and a whole lot of action. Look out, baby, I'm your love man. I'm hungry.
That's that old disc jockey voice right there. That's that old disc jockey spiel right there. I know that.
And you were married to
Gladys
a
Knight.
legend, an
Yes,
icon.
I used to be the conductor of the midnight train. I wasn't one of the... I wasn't one of the pips.
So you used to be married to Gladys Knight. How did you meet Gladys Knight?
At a concert in Chicago.
So she was performing.
She was
And
performing.
you got your way backstage to holler.
Yes.
You a player from the Himalaya. Tell us this
Without
story,
any question.
Tell us the story.
I asked the person who brought me there, who was a PR person, I said, can you take me back to meet her? And she did, and Gladys was very gracious, very beautiful person.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a conversation, and there was chemistry. It's just like two people who've gotten together who've known each other forever. And ultimately, we married. But our lives are going in two different directions. My life was taking off with public television, doing public television specials, raising funds for PBS, and her life in the singing industry, it was very strong. And we were passing each other like two ships in the night, but just an incredible human being that I still love to this very day and have a great deal of respect for her.
Y'all still speak?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Did you watch the verses with her and Miss Patti LaBelle?
Yes, I did.
What'd you think?
I thought it was powerful, you know. And I just, what was shocked me was glad when Patty pulled her mirror out, was put her makeup on, saying kicked her shoes off. I knew that was coming, but I knew Gladys wasn't going to go there. Gladys has a certain standard that's somewhat different. She is a person who holds herself to a standard, as Henry David Thoreau, who says, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go where there's no path and leave a trail." She's not going to roll on the floor, but Patty, she gonna roll on the floor. She say, "I'm coming for you." And so I love both of their styles. I love Patty very much.
Who cooks better?
Mama G.
That's right.
He knows what he has to say.
said,
Stop it.
I'm not
That's
gonna
not even a fair question.
But when Luther was alive, he was bad. He was in the running too.
Luther could cook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yes, he was a great cook, man. They were very great friends. Yes.
How are your
Oh,
cooking
man.
skills?
I'm the one that can eat the most.
No, my dad, to his credit, he probably hasn't cooked in over a decade. But one summer, you know, it's interesting growing up with Les Brown and Gladys Knight in your household. But my dad got up every morning and made me breakfast. I used to go to the Harlem Boys Choir, and his best dish, runny eggs.
Okay.
Runny
there
eggs,
you
what is
go.
that?
Is that a good thing?
That doesn't sound.
That doesn't sound good.
Your daddy made it for
Yeah.
you. You just gonna soup him up.
Perhaps.
Just soup him up.
That's interesting about Luther though, because you know when he lost weight, I wonder did he change his culinary skills, like the way he cooked? I wonder.
Yes, he did. And the biggest challenge that he felt is what we all have to grapple with. It's an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. That if you don't change how you see yourself and increase your sense of worthiness, that I deserve to be here, and have a plan of action of the choices that you make that allows you to be here, that many of us die not because of what we eat, but because of what's eating us. And a lot of stuff eating it.
What are some things you had to change and pivot during the pandemic when it comes to your work and public speaking and helping people? Because as you said, you want to help people throughout this pandemic kind of get back into the workforce and back into their lives and their groove. So what are some things that are different now?
I'm not helping people to get back into the workforce, because I'm helping people to face the realization that the 40-40 plan is gone, where you go to college, graduate, get a job, work for 40 years, and retire on 40%, which wasn't enough in the first place. As I said earlier, we've gone from brick and mortar to click and order. So now we have to reinvent ourselves. Now you have to be an entrepreneur. There's no such thing as job security. The late Peter Drucker said that this is the era of the 3 C's: accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition. So we have to reinvent ourselves. This Les Brown that you now see was not the original Les Brown. This was me. And I had to evolve to accommodate the area where I was going. But fortunately, because of my experience in radio, I developed a dimension about myself that I did not know that gave me an advantage as a public speaker. You live as blind people. And so you're talking to people, you know when you're connecting, you know when you're reaching them that you can't see. So when you speak before an audience, you can see them, you can hear their response. Now you can create an experience that will transform them individually and collectively. So the Les Brown that was LB P, the man about town, I evolved. I wanted to be not just a speaker, but a dominant speaker and to speak to the world. And that's what I do now, and that's what I teach others on how to do, because this is a place where if you can communicate in front of that computer, in front of that green light, and reach people with your personality, with your passion, with your knowledge and your skills, then you can have a global enterprise that people want to tap into your knowledge, experience, and the things that you have going for you that will be of service to them. So that's the key. Transitioning. I'm making more money now from home with my son because he's more adept to technology than I am. So I have to follow his lead. I can train speakers, I can speak, but when it comes to technology and how to put together funnels and how to create the money on the back end, that's his expertise. And so we have to be able to build what I call collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships. We have to build mental resolve. That's number one. Number two, we have to create a thirst for learning. If you're not willing to learn, nobody can help you. But if you're willing to learn, no one can stop you. So I had to learn. I wanted to speak for AT&T, Procter & Gamble, McDonald's Corporation, General Electric, IBM, Xerox. Never worked for them, don't have any college education, but I was willing to learn so I can be competitive. And by creating collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships, that helped me to get access because of the skills I developed as a radio personality that allowed me to be able to hold my ground with any of them on any subject matter because I study it. And people have to do that.
Aren't you glad there was no social media back then? Because if people saw the Les Brown back then, they may not take the Les Brown now seriously. Because they'd be like, I know that ain't the Les Brown trying to give us motivation. The Les Brown that was in the club with us, with all these women.
It wasn't like that. No, keep it higher, my brother.
You was in New York on WBLS back in the day. You was out and about.
That's right.
No, I wasn't.
Really?
No. You know why? Let me tell you why.
I was having events in all the boroughs, and I was a community activist. In fact, it was destiny that I came here. Because when I came here, I thought it was to be able to be in the largest radio market on the planet. I read a newspaper article where General Norman Schwarzkopf and Harry Belafonte were diagnosed with prostate cancer. So I said, you know what? I told Oliver Sutton, I said, man, we should do a campaign to encourage African American men to get a prostate examination. And so there was an African American doctor who was interviewed, and I called him. I said, would you be my guest? And he said, yes. And then he asked me when he was in the studio with me, he said, have you had a prostate examination? So I said, no. He said, don't ask people to do something you haven't done. Come on in and get the test. I came in and got the test. He called me 2 days later. He said, Mr. Brown, I need to see you in my office. I said, look, I'm a big boy. Tell me what's going on. He said, you have prostate cancer.
Wow.
My PSA was 2,400. 1 to 4 is normal. And it metastasized to 7 areas of my body.
Wow.
And so fortunately, a brother by the name of Alfred Golson, an oncologist from Howard University, he gave me 238 radiation seed implants. That brother saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah, they said that I was on the way out. But he was a very strange guy. He said, let me say something to you. I said, what? You got prostate cancer. I said, okay. It's metastasized to 7 areas of your body. I said, whoa. He said, why are you smiling? I said, man, I'm one of 7 children. I was born February the 17th. Joshua marched around the walls of Jericho 7 times. Naaman dipped himself in the river 7 times, the River Jordan 7 times. I said, is there anything else? He said, yeah, and you're ugly too. I said, you didn't call me ugly. Man, that's malpractice. He said, but you got this. I never tell my patients that they're terminally ill. What I say is that my knowledge, my abilities, and my skills have terminated. Now it's on you and God to determine the prognosis. I determine the diagnosis. I'm going to tell you what I can do, and then the rest of it is to you and God. And I'm glad that he dealt with it like that, and he interrupted the fear that most people have because they see cancer as a death sentence. Your mindset is very important, as well as having an alkaline body and being a vegetarian. But your mindset is major in activating and strengthening your immune system and having social support, which is the number one thing that helps you stay on the planet longer.
And that's important in all aspects of life too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Right now, when you look at, I read an article saying our children are listening to us. We have young people, young African American people, who are committing suicide at an alarming rate. The article was called Our Children Are Listening to Us. The three most important things that we need to do is, number one, we need to monitor what we take in, because what you listen to, you turn into. That's number one. We need to listen to things that empower us and monitor what our children are taking in and what they're watching. Number two, we have to help them to practice the principle of OQP, only quality people. The people that you have in your life, they're determined whether or not you're an asset or a liability. People rub off on you. And the third thing, you have to teach them, as well as ourselves, how to become an effective presenter. And even in corporations, your ability to communicate is 85% dependent upon your success in corporations than your technical skills. So your ability to express yourself, to sell ideas, to make a sale, to influence people is dependent. And so sitting in front of the computer, this is the primary way that people are going to be making money going forward, by expressing themselves, selling their ideas and their knowledge and abilities on the internet.
Do you think we should be encouraging people to return to normal after this pandemic, or should we be embracing a new normal?
We will never be able to go back to where we were, because we don't know what this is.
That's right.
This is biological warfare, if you ask me. We have no clue about what this is. So what we have to do is ask people, one, to stop and think. How do I deal with this? You know, I just discovered my birth parents. Here I am, 77. I just saw for the first time a picture of my mother and my father.
Wow.
I've never seen that before. And so that's a major disruption. Two brothers that I didn't know I had. That was a major disruption. So I'm still processing that. You were talking about the last few weeks, all right? So.
Can they ask you for money?
No.
Okay.
They did not.
He's already sent it.
Oh, you already sent it?
Dad has a good heart.
Wow. So they asked and you already sent?
They did not ask.
They didn't
Oh, you
ask.
just decided to send something?
I just want to help them. They're in Gainesville, Georgia, and they're just good people, beautiful people.
Wow.
And I just wanted to share it. But my birth mother, Dorothy Bell Rucker, has created a new narrative for me. When I had my talk show, my radio show, I would say, "This has been Mrs. Mamie Brown's baby boy." Now I have to say, "This has been Mrs. Mamie Brown's baby boy," and Dorothy Bell Rucker's pride and joy. I got two mothers, and I'm not ashamed. I've got two mothers, and I love them just the same. And so I now have an expanded narrative about who I am and what caused me to become the kind of person I am, because Dorothy Bell Rucker was a motivational speaker, teacher, educator, and Beulah Rucker, who had a relationship with Mary McLeod Bethune, she was an educator. She was a motivational speaker. They have a museum in her name, the Beulah Rucker Museum in Gainesville, Georgia. And so that's the lineage that I came out of, that I had no clue, that I was not aware of, that I knew whenever I got fired in September 22nd, 1978, from WVKO radio station in Columbus, Ohio, because I editorialized about police brutality and police deadly use of force, police beating a Vietnam veteran while he held his 4-month-old child at a restaurant called the Kahiki Restaurant. And for the first time in the history of this country, that 2 white policemen were fired for beating an African-American male. That had never happened before. They got me off the air, and then they brought them back on the air because I used to lead demonstrations as large as 7,000 people against police brutality. So just to think, in September 22nd, 1978, that was my last day in radio, and it's going on now.
Yeah.
And so what we have to do is what you're doing now, which is very important, that evil prevails when good men and women do nothing. That what you're doing is you've created a platform where people can hear other voices about we don't have to just be victims. There's an active role that we can play in this process. There are three kinds of people in this life. Those who watch things happen, which is the majority, those who don't know what happened, and a few people who make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've decided, you took the initiative, you are the model for the millions of people that listen to you every day. Hey, don't just watch what's going on. Don't just be a witness or a fan. Become actively engaged and create something that will be a solution-driven vehicle as opposed to just watching the problems that's taking place.
Thank you. Can you tell us, give us a little backstory on why you just discovered who your parents were?
Because I'm adopted.
Okay.
And so my oldest son did a search through one of those organizations that check your DNA.
Like 23andMe or
Yeah, those types of organizations, and found and discovered where they were born, and then fortunately, look at God, the lady that he called and was talking to help me find my birth parents, they continued to talk, and she asked, "What's your father's name?" And he said, Les Brown. Well, this DNA match is for Calvin Randolph. Well, my birth father's name was Doc Oliver Randolph. And she said, "Your father's my first cousin."
Wow, look at God.
Look at God. Come on, Doc.
How did that feel when you first found that out, though?
It was jarring. And when my second cousin showed me a video of my mother speaking, which I've probably watched it about 56 times, it was disarming. I just said, Mamie Brown, who adopted me, my birth mother, she gave me life, but Mamie Brown, who adopted me, she taught me how to live life. And so it was disarming to see her, to see our mannerisms. There's certain things that are taught and some things are caught. And you do things and you don't, there's some things I call that can't help it. That you can't help it. It's just who you are.
Yeah.
It's in you. And you've got to do it. You are driven. You were chosen to do it.
Was it instant love, or did you have any anger or resentment? How does that?
Oh, no anger, no reason. I was curious. One, that's a small town. How did she, being a very popular person, an educator, how did they get down to Miami, Florida, for a period of time for her to have us? And she waited. She didn't just give us to anybody, to her credit. She waited to find the right person that said, "I want you to have my sons." And then she went back, and she never told anybody. So I only talked to two people, one lady who's 93 and one who just passed, she was 89, who knew the secret. So I and my brother, we were a secret.
Wow.
This thing called life.
Did you care to know why they put you up for adoption, or?
Oh, I knew why she did. She was married.
Okay.
And her husband was away in World War II.
Gotcha.
So she had to get rid of us before he came back.
Boy, them country secrets be different, don't they? them down south dirt road secrets, boy. Lord have
No,
mercy.
they're everywhere. Remember that song, Mama Look at Boo Boo? They said, Harry Belafonte, Daddy's baby, Mama's maybe.
Has it been a struggle to have this positive mindset? Because I know with everything going on in the world and having to watch the news and then people weighing in and having things to say and having so much access nowadays, how do you maintain that? Because I know sometimes it's not an easy thing to do.
It is not an easy thing to do. And faith not tested can't be trusted. We're going to always be tested in life.
That's right.
It's easy to have faith if nobody looks at you and say, you have terminal cancer. That's what fourth stage cancer is, what Cancer Centers of America in Atlanta said to me 3 months ago, Mr. Brown. They were confirming you still have fourth stage cancer. You are a miracle, the fact that you're still here. That's number one. Number two is that my children and friends, people that I have motivated and encouraged, when you surround yourself with collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships, they did a study to find out what is it that determines what's the longest a person can live? What is it that can help make that possible? I thought it was plant-based diet, organic food, and alkaline water and staying alkaline. No. Social support. If you got social support,
I agree.
people who come home after a surgery to an empty house, their recovery level takes longer. But if you got a loving, supportive relationship waiting to greet you, your recovery is faster.
Really?
And when you look at psychoneuroimmunology, the mind, your immune system and your nervous system, that the relationships that you have here, the conversations that you have here, it has aligned you in a cause bigger than you. It's not about your individual personalities.
That's right.
That you come in here and you having conversations, and in your mind there is a vision that you have that's bigger than you to make people's lives better who listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so that alignment will serve you individually and collectively better than someone who does not have a reason to get up in the morning, who need an alarm clock to get up in the morning. Nietzsche said, if you know the why for living, you can endure almost anyhow. If you know why you are here, which most people don't, they have not stopped to think. The benefit of the pandemic is my daughter, Dr. Ona Brown, she said, gaps are from God, that we have time to think. I mean, the divorce rate is up 40% during this time. People who look over at each other say, I don't want to do life with you anymore. I feel lonely whenever you're around. Or when Frankie Crocker said, it's better to be alone than to wish you were.
No, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. Do you feel pressure following in your dad's footsteps?
Not pressure. First of all, I feel like I hit the parent jackpot. Mm-hmm. So many young men don't have their fathers in their lives. And my grandmother, Mrs. Mamie Brown, when DJ Envy talked about what Dad might have been doing back in the day,
Right.
Mamie Brown beat some sense into Les Brown. She made sure that he wasn't hanging out with gangs in the neighborhood. She was the type of mom that come to the school. Well, she worked in the cafeteria for a period, but she'll come to the school and beat you in class. Just to make.
You can't do the things that you name. You can't do that.
No, you can't do that
Mama
now.
be locked up, grandma be locked up, auntie be locked up, everybody locked up.
Yes, but in that particular time, my grandmother, who adopted 7 children who weren't her own, her dream was to be a mother. And as a mother, she wanted to do everything to keep them safe. And because actually on 1993, Mrs. Mamie Brown, she passed away on my birthday from breast cancer.
Sorry to hear that.
And it was the first time, Charlamagne, that I ever saw my dad cry. He held her hand as she took her last breath. And I was just turning 10 years old, going into double digits. So I was learning from the adults around me how to be sad for the first time. But a couple days later, during the funeral, they asked if anyone wanted to get up and share stories about Mrs. Mamie Brown. And there for the first time, I gave a speech about my grandmother.
I was shocked when he stood up. I saw him walking down front. I said, "Where is this dude going?"
He can talk.
Yeah.
And afterwards, my dad looked at me with hopeful eyes, and they probably had some dollar signs in them too. And he said, "Son, there's greatness in you. There's a calling on your life. Your voice will carry the torch to the next generation." Next week, I was on tour introducing Les Brown.
What a game.
By the time I was 14, I was the highest paid teen speaker in America. So my dad didn't just sit me in the classroom. He set me next to him in the boardrooms so that I could have access and exposure to create a better life for our
How
our
much was
family.
your dad paying you back then now, man?
Well, I had to earn my stripes, so he didn't.
internship.
He didn't. Yeah, it was an internship.
Still interning.
But
Tell him how much you earned, though.
But yes, by the time I was 14, after just introducing him, mastering little short speeches with him, I got my first request, and by 14, I was making $2,500 an hour.
Nice.
$2,500 an hour.
An hour.
And you have this book, The Harvard Effect. What's
You got
that?
10%.
Yes, the Harvard effect.
You got 10%.
I give it all to him.
Yeah, 20.
Oh well, he was making $70,000 an hour, so he didn't need my
yeah,
10%.
$2,500 back
No,
then.
70 in
Not
the
at all.
United States, 225,000 outside, an
Yes.
hour outside of the United States.
Wow.
And Miss Angela asked about this book. Actually, when I was a teenager, because I had an audience, I was on punishment for not writing a book. That's a different level of standards. It's because Dad knew business and he knew I had an audience. So many years later, we had an opportunity, got a request to speak at Harvard University. And this was a big deal for me. Dad's moment was in the Georgia Dome speaking before 80,000 people. And mine was at Harvard University, and I was working to find out how do you make a message relevant for this audience. And the one thing that really stood out to me was a story about my dad working with the Microsoft. And after the speech, they said, "Hey, we heard you talking about your 10 and 20-year goals, Mr. Brown. That's cute, but we want to show you something." Took him in the back room, pulled up a screen and said, "This is where our family will be in technology 100 years from now." And so
That was humbling.
that was humbling. And so when you look at families that create massive wealth, generational wealth, and as you know, 70% of wealth is going by the second generation and over 90 by the third generation. I said, if it's good enough for the Gates family and Toyota and Amazon, if they need 100-year plans, how can we create that in our community?
That's right.
So that you don't just live your life, take all your resources with you, but you leave something behind for the next generation?
Yes, and so what we're doing now is I would say you are my spiritual children. There's no success, as T.D. Jakes says, without successors.
That's right.
And so there are experiences that I've had that there are people being pushed up and people being pushed off. So I've had a good run, but it would be a travesty for me not to share with you what I've learned. One sickness can wipe out a fortune. One sickness.
That's right.
And so what I'm doing is teaching people not only how, and I have a natural connection with people in radio because I had the first talk show in Columbus, Ohio, and called The Voice of the People, but teaching radio announcers how to use their voices in other arenas and create non-performance income. And there's a brother that I work with because we have to create collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships. Cedric Brown and Tanya Brown, no relationship to me, who are teaching people. They have a company called Trust Up, how to put their businesses in trust and not pay taxes and push them forward like the wealthy do. There's a strategy to that. So what we have to do is expose ourselves to brothers and sisters who have the knowledge, who have the skills and the know-how. I'm learning this, I believe even at 77, you're never too old to learn, and you're never too young to teach. And so I learn from you. I watch you. I've seen some characters come up in here. There was one brother I wanted to take him out because he came in. He was very, very disrespectful.
Oh, Birdman.
I'm not calling his name because I'm 70 now. I got a good right, but I can't fight no more.
but in his defense, what I may have said about him could have been taken as disrespectful too.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but when things go wrong, don't go with them. If you can tell, I never forget when I was a state legislator, and there was a guy introduced some legislation that I disagreed with, and fortunately, I was seated next to an older guy named C.J. McLean out of Dayton, Ohio. And I raised my hand and I said, Mr. Speaker, I want to challenge this gentleman. And he knew my reputation as a radio personality, being very militant. And he said, Mr. Brown, he said, if you can get a man's attention by tapping him on the shoulder, why knock him in the mouth?
Wow.
Because he's going to have to fight you, even if he doesn't want to. And he might get in a lucky lick. Call him aside and talk to him. And so that's what I did. And so I'm sure had he called either one of y'all and said, I need to talk to you, you'd have talked to him.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
You see? So we have to work with each other and make a decision on the side of love rather than on the side of anger. It's you can get angry easily when anger is a wind that blows out the lamp of the mind. And so anger does not serve us. A lot of people in jail who went crazy got angry, and they're sitting in jail saying, why did I go there?
Facts.
Why didn't I stop myself?
What does your siblings say? You know, because from this picture, from this view, you know, you look like your daddy's favorite. You went on the road with daddy early. You all with daddy.
He is not my favorite.
Oh, don't say that.
Is he yours?
Look like I made him all by myself.
That's the beautiful thing, being the youngest of 10. I feel like they've seen me work my way up from the mail room and serving for many years. I didn't start off as the president of the company, but my siblings, they're very proud. We've actually toured together. We all work in the family business. We're known as the first family of motivation. And I'm grateful they flew out for our event that we just had here in New
Queens,
York,
right?
in Queens. And we put together the event in
Hungry
5
for
weeks,
Greatness
the
event.
Hungry for
Yeah.
Greatness events in 5 weeks, and I called my siblings, and they're there backstage, and they walked in, they saw the room, it was a packed house with social distancing, of course, and they're like, "Little bro, I'm proud of you."
That's right,
they-
that's
I
So
love
who-
my daughters.
so
My
who's your
daughters
favorite
are
then?
my favorites.
The
My-
daughter's your favorite.
Definitely.
My
As they
daughters.
should be.
They
yeah.
never got beat.
Yeah, no, they never got speech at all. I give them beat down. Yeah, because I never forget my daughter Samir told her mother when they were coming down to stay with me for the summer. She said, "Mom, I'm not talking loud because I don't want Dad to hear me. I want to go down to Miami and stay with him during the summer because I got him wrapped around my finger."
Wow.
That's right.
I'm listening. I said, "Is that right?" Oh, yeah.
And then you said, "You're right. That is so true."
You're right.
That is so true. Yes.
And I think with my siblings now, and I have a good relationship with all of them, but they don't all have that with each other, is that we're moving from legacy to dynasty. See, legacy is all about how you want to be remembered, but dynasty is all about why you will never be forgotten.
Ooh.
And when you have a pioneer as a father, a man that got up every day in the 90s making cold calls without being some type of celebrity to get exposure, to use his voice to empower people, you have to ask yourself, how do I keep this dynasty alive? How do I make a mark on the next generation? And how can I do something with my life that will outlive me?
So I've got many spiritual sons and daughters all across this country and around this world. Because when Dr. King was taken out, there was nobody just to step in. With Malcolm, there was nobody just to step in. We have to duplicate ourselves. When people saw the speakers the other night, they knew when they saw Johnny Wimbrey, they knew when they saw the various speakers, that, whoa, they can go with me toe to toe, and many of them were better than I am.
And you know who stole the show? My son Honor, 7 years old, and he came out and got us started because he started off speaking at 4 or 5 years old at the Staples Center.
Not
It's all
playing.
he knows, and he came out there and held his own with the best of them, didn't he, Daddy?
Yes, he did. But, you know, Donna Lawrence came up in my space.
The gospel singer.
Let me
Grammy
tell
Award
you
gospel
something. I've been talking to him, and he's written a lot of inspirational songs. So I said, man, you can not just sing, you can speak too. And he said, I've always wanted to do that. Did you remember the making of Thriller? And they asked the choreographer, how did you feel working with Michael Jackson? He said, just imagine doing something all your life, and somebody comes off the street and go with you toe to toe. Well, Donna Lawrence, who's been singing, and I said, you can speak. He came in my space. Now, let's put this in context. I won the highest award for the National Speakers Association, inducted into their Hall of Fame. The Golden Gavel Award, which is the highest award to Toastmasters, selected among the top 5 speakers in the world, got more votes than all of them combined. Donna Lawrence came on the stage, and he said, you know, there are things that you do and things that happen, and at the time they happen, it don't make sense. And people will say to you, give up. And you'll say to yourself, give up, because it don't make sense. But it makes faith to stick in there. It makes faith to judge not according to appearances. It makes faith to call forth those things that be not as though they were. Keep your faith to your faith. When your prayers aren't answered, keep your faith to your faith. I said afterwards, I said, you better watch your knees in the parking lot. Oh, he tore it up. That's a bad brother up in here, up in here.
I got 2 more questions. Can you motivate an unmotivated person?
Yes. You can motivate them if you take the time. And one of the things that I train speakers, what gave me a competitive advantage in the speaking industry, and there was nobody on stage that looked like me, I noticed 2 things. Number one, they were just giving information. If information could change people, everybody would be skinny, rich, and happy. Information only impact 2 areas of the brain. I came in with a story about the hunger to buy my mother a home. A story touched the heart, and it impacts 5 areas of the brain. Number 2, they operate under the philosophy of the Dale Carnegie course. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. My mentor, Mike Williams, who wrote the book, The Road to Your Best Stuff, The Road to Your Best Stuff, he said, Brownie, never let what you want to say get in the way of what your audience wants to hear. Conduct communications intelligence. Ask questions. Find out their sweet spot. Find out what's keeping them up at night. And so I would talk to that person to find out what drives them. What is it that they have something that they're interested in? And once I find that out, I want to find out, when did they lose their voice? When is it that they lost their fire? We are all born, please believe this, with built-in greatness. But something happens. One of the most profound messages I heard, and the family will not allow this speech to be made public. And the speech was, we are today what we were when. That something happened to that person. Never ask, why did that person do that, or why they like that? Question is, what happened to them caused them to become like that?
Right.
And once you find what that is and can get that out of the way, because they're living out of their history, and get them to live out of their imagination. Einstein said the imagination is the preview of what's to come. And so I would talk to them to find out, what is it that drives them? What happened? When was your life shut down? What happened to you? And I was, case in point, talking to this lady, and she's in our training. And I said, when did you lose your voice? And she said, when I was a child. And I said, what happened? My mother's boyfriend raped me. And he told me, do not tell or you'll get in a lot of trouble. So when her mother came home from work, she was 11 years old at the time. She told her mother, and her mother said, you are lying, and beat the living hell out of her. And when he came home and saw that she was bruised and beaten, he said, I told you not to tell, that you'll get in trouble. And he proceeded to rape her again.
Wow.
And so we are today what we were when some experience, something happened that impacted us, that we never found a way, never got the help from somebody that can take us to a place in ourselves that we can't go by ourselves to help us deal with it so we can get past it.
And I think can you motivate an unmotivated person? I think that one of the things that Dad teaches, that environment is more important than people. It's tough when you're in a negative environment where no one's achieved anything, no one's holding you accountable. But when you take a person out of their natural environment, and I know you all have your nonprofits and things where you give back to the community, and you expose them to a better life, to people that are making better decisions, that look at them differently in their eyes if they could be more than what they are, then you can create a thirst and a hunger to achieve more than anyone else in your family has.
Yeah, you can take a horse to the water. You can't make him drink. But if you know how to get to know who they are and communicate effectively and create a significant emotional event, you can create a thirst where they want to drink. And that's the key. It's not about motivating them. It's about communicating with them in a way, respecting them, getting to know them, developing a relationship with them where they will motivate themselves, where they say, I can do this, as opposed to just relying on me saying, you've got greatness in you. You have the ability to do more than you can ever begin to imagine. Because I've been there. I've been in the place where they are. So I have empathy for them. I have compassion for them. And I'm patient in the process because I believe that all of us are reachable, teachable, and redeemable. And all they need is somebody with a caring heart that will be patient enough to bring it out.
I agree. That's why teachers are so important, because you don't know what kids' circumstances are at home. You don't know how they grew up or what went on in their lives. When they come to school, you have to understand that every student has something different that went on and that is going on currently. So you have to really try to inspire them and not feel like, well, he's just not motivated.
Right. No, something happened that shut them down. And what we can do is help them to get past that. Einstein said the imagination is a preview of what's to come. Getting people to live out of their imagination. He said, I'll give you all your eyes can see, rather than their history. And allowing them to see themselves achieving a different life, see themselves beyond the adversities of life, and experience the emotion of what it's like to live a life of success. That's what Mr. Washington did for me. I never knew my father, but he said, Mr. Brown, I see you being on radio. I see you having the ability to hold an audience. Can you see what I see? And I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so that encouragement, and I started thinking about it, and I had a 3x5 card on one time. On one side I had, I am a powerful radio personality. On the flip side I had, ask and it shall be given, Matthew 7:7. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. And I read that several times a day, and including a lot of other motivational stuff. And I listened to various personalities on radio that helped to cultivate my mind. What you listen to, you turn into. And I said, this is me. This is what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah, my final question was going to be, what's the best motivation you've ever received? I think you just answered that. The advice from Mr. Washington.
The advice that someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. We live within the context of the conversations that we're exposed to and the things that we believe about ourselves. That's why it's important that we watch what our children are listening to, because the words shape our mindset and our, what psychologists call their self-explanatory style. Dr. Carter G. Woodson said, if you can determine what a man shall think, you never have to concern yourself with what he will do. He said, if you can make a man feel inferior, you never have to compel him to seek an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. And if you can make a man feel justly an outcast, you never have to order him to go to the back door. He'll go without being told. And if there's no door, his very nature will demand one. That book, The Miseducation of the Negro.
Oh, the Negro, absolutely.
That has been my Bible, because we've been miseducated, and still to this very day. So what we have to do is reverse that thinking and help them to begin to get a different vision of themselves, different than what the school system is giving them with the indoctrination that they have, depriving them of knowledge of who they are, and helping them to see themselves as having greatness within them and the ability to achieve greatness and to be able to manifest it in all dimensions of our lives. We can do more than just rap or box or run with a football and a helmet 35 miles an hour. We can do so many other things, and we have to expose our kids to those things so they can say, that's me.
Woo! Les Brown, that was a word this morning. Thank you, sir. John, thank you very much. Tell them how to contact y'all, man.
Well, go ahead, John Leslie.
Yes, you can go to hungrytospeak.com. At hungrytospeak.com. That's the best way to work with Les Brown and our community of speakers who are transforming the next generation. My dad's very passionate about helping people get their voices out there. And they can also reach out at lesbrown@hungrytospeak.com to reach out to
For
us.
people who
personally.
want one-on-one coaching, yes.
That's right. It's Les Brown and John Leslie Brown. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
appreciate
And the
it.
coaching is very inexpensive, by the way, so it's worth
Yes,
the money.
well, yes. One of the things that people have to do today is bet on you. Put your money where your mouth is. Because once you learn how to communicate, no one can stop you. I've 1 month, Monday through Thursday, 45 minutes. I earned how much, John Leslie?
Over $600,000.
Yeah,
Stop bragging.
$640,000. No, I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you. There's more for us than just entertainment.
That's right.
We got so much more. People think that the only way you can get rich is that you got to entertain. No, we can do so many other things outside of that. But they don't pay you by the hour. They pay you for the value you bring to the hour. That corporation had a lot of choices of over 3,000 speakers. And my goal was not to be a speaker, but a dominant speaker. I train speakers so that you can become so good that you cannot be ignored and you'll be paid for what you're worth.
That's right.
There you go.
It's Les Big Baller Brown and John Leslie Brown. Thank y'all for coming. It's the Breakfast
I'm
Club.
gonna pray for you, my brother.